Hello everyone, my name is Griffin Swanson and I'm the channel product manager here at Professional Advantage for a collections management module that works with Dynamics GP. And we've been creating a mini series of videos breaking down the features and functionality of collections management to give our customers a better understanding of how this product works. And today we're going to have a focus here on creating a new collection note for your customers and how those notes act as a follow-up task. As you can see right now, I'm on the collections main window within collections management, and there's a number of different actions that we can perform from here. One of those features is creating a new note for your customer. Now, one of the things I want to mention with this new note here right off the bat is you can see it automatically date and timestamps the note when you've created that. It's also going to put in the caller ID here. That's the actual collector or GP user who has created that note. But with all that being said, everyone, just to give everyone a better idea of how these notes actually work, I want to pull open one that I've already created. And you notice all of the notes you've created for a particular customer reside down here at the bottom, but you have a few different options when it comes to reviewing those notes. If you go to the options tab here at the top of the main window, you notice we have this no status feature where you can review all of the notes, open notes, completed notes, canceled notes, and partial payment notes. For today's example and demonstration, we're going to stick with all the notes there. And to review a current note, all you have to do is select that note and drill into this notes comment hyperlink. That will pull open the current version of that particular note. Now again, it is going to date and timestamp that note whenever it's created, as well as show you who created that note here. It is also going to put in the address and contact person, and that's going to match up with the client details here back on the main window. You'll then have the ability here to put this as a note priority level, and we give you three different options for that: a low priority, normal priority, and a high priority. Now, one of the areas you can filter customers based off a no priority level is building a query. And we do have a separate video on YouTube as well that shows you how these queries work and function. And then you also have the ability here to view the no priority level back on the main window. So if I pull this note off to the right-hand side here and just scroll down on the bottom of Aaron Fitz Electrical, you notice we have three different colors here. This first low priority level is going to be displayed as a clear or white color. Normal priority is going to be displayed as green, and then a high priority is going to be displayed as red. It basically gives you a visual representation of where that note is at in terms of a priority level without having to drill back into each individual note. At the bottom here, we then have the note text, and this is all open text field, so you can type in whatever you want this note to read. We'll even see customers copy and paste email conversations in here. On this particular note, we spoke to Bob Fitz, who is the customer here, and he said he's going to be making a payment onto invoices. So the first thing I want to do after putting in that note text then is assign this to an action ID. The action ID is something that you've done, such as a follow-up or a reminder, or again, it can be the status of where their invoices are at. For example here, Bob said he's going to make a payment by early next week, so we put this as a promise to pay. Now we can drill into these action IDs here, and there's three different categories when it comes to setting these up. We have the action ID itself, the description of that action, as well as the action type. Now, the action IDs and descriptions are completely configurable. You can set those up as you feel fit for your best collection needs or your best collection practices. We do have some sample data that comes with collections management as well if you wanted to take advantage of that, because the reality is a lot of these action IDs and descriptions are very straightforward. For example here, you have some calling options, checks in the mail, sent to collections, or maybe you're even disputing an invoice. Again, completely configurable on how you want to set up those actions and descriptions. But we'll then categorize them by an action type, and these are predefined and cannot be changed. We have three that come with the product by default. The first one here is a promise to pay. So your customer has made some sort of notion that they're going to submit payment on an invoice or a group of invoices. Special circumstance, anything deemed outside of your normal day-to-day collecting activities would fall under that. And then the third category here is dispute. Maybe you're going back and forth with a customer disputing what actually needs to be paid on an invoice. Now, if you do not want to categorize it with one of those three action types there, you can technically just leave it blank, and that would show up as an action type as none. But again, we went with a promise to pay here because that's what Bob said he's going to do, submitting a payment by early next week on a couple of invoices. The next thing we're going to do here then is assign this note to an action date. And what this action date really does is it leverages the note as a follow-up task. You can see that task window here in the top left-hand corner of the collections main window, and we will be drilling into that here in just a minute to show you how these notes are configured within the task window itself. But ultimately, if this action date goes past due and your customer has not submitted payment on that invoice or group of invoices, it will then again leverage this note into your task window telling you that you need to follow up with that particular customer. Now, we're not saying here that you have to assign this to just past due invoices. You could set this in advance of an invoice being due as well. As long as the note itself has an action ID and a follow-up date, it will then be leveraged into your task window. Now, you can also assign this to a different collector as well. If you come in and create a note for a customer that isn't usually someone you work with, this would allow you to assign it to the appropriate collector or the credit manager. And then we'll assign the specific invoices or attach them from this selected documents window to this note too. So if we drill into this, this is going to pull open our collections management transaction inquiry window, showing us all of the open invoices for that particular customer. All you need to do is select the invoices you want attached, go OK, and then it will automatically put in this action amount to the total amount of those invoices you selected. However, you can change this action amount if necessary. I always like to tell my customers, if you're trying to collect from somebody and they're telling you they can only make a partial payment on that invoice, you can change the action amount here to the amount that they said they're going to pay. So for example, let's say we reach out to Bob Fitz here. Bob comes back and says, hey, look, everyone, I cannot pay that $3,000 today. However, I do have $2,000 that I can make as a down payment. You can change that action amount to the amount that Bob said he's going to pay. That way, when that $2,000 comes through, we can apply that payment within GP and then follow up on the remaining amount with a different or new note. Or you have the status reason here where you could put this in as a partial payment, take note of what's remaining down here below, and then follow up and continue on the same original note. Now, since we're speaking of the statuses here, if this note is considered as open, that means those invoices have not been paid. Once that payment comes through, we can mark this as complete. And then if for any reason we needed to cancel note, or if a note was canceled by one of our automated plans, we do have status reasons for that as well. And a common question I'll get here is, okay, do we really need to manually complete a note every time an invoice is being paid? And the answer is no. Once we drill into this task window here, I'm going to show you a feature that's called Mark Complete. And what that does, it goes through and finds all of the invoices that have been fully applied within GP and automatically complete these notes for you. So I'll go into more detail once we get into the task window and showing you that feature, but just know you will not have to manually complete a note every time an invoice is paid. And then with that being said, before we drill into the task window here, the last thing I want to show everyone is that this does keep a history of the revisions you've made to a particular note. As I mentioned earlier, what we're looking at right now is the most current and open note we have for that particular customer. But if we ever needed to look back on that history trail, we have the ability to do that here. You can see you can scroll all the way back to the original note, and bear with me, I have 15 revisions here, but ultimately you can see the changes that have been made. You can see the invoices that have been added or subtracted, as well as if any one of your other colleagues or collectors have made a change to that particular note. So again, this is really just a history trail for your team to review when it comes to the notes feature. With that being said, let's go ahead and drill into this task window now, which is essentially going to be the to-do list for your collectors. And we can review these tasks in a number of different ways. For starters, we have this collector ID field here. Most times we see collectors want to work on their individual tasks, so you can set this up to a view where you focus in on your individual customers. Now, if you were to leave this field blank here, this would allow you to work on other people's tasks. Maybe you have a colleague or a collector who's out on vacation, and you want to make sure that their tasks are followed up with. So that's very compatible there. And then you can set up different action dates here as well. Maybe you want to focus in on a specific day, a week, or even a month, or you could have it set up like I do, where I'm basically saying, show me all of the open tasks that I have prior to today's date. So then I get that task list down below here. And you can see here that we have this note description field once again. This would allow us to drill in and review that specific note. If you wanted to, you can manually mark them as complete by hitting this checkbox here. You can review all of your completed tasks from this window. And then as I previously mentioned, we have this mark completed feature. We do give you a little description there on how that's going to work, but as I previously mentioned, as long as those invoices are being fully applied within GP, collections management is going to recognize that and automatically complete these notes for you. We have some customers who are processing thousands of invoices a week. It's not realistic for them to come in and manually complete these notes once an invoice is paid, so it's very beneficial to those types of customers. But the reality is, all of our customers should be taking advantage of this feature. With that being said, everyone, that is going to wrap up today's demo covering the collection notes and the task window. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us at professionaladvantage.com and go to our contact page.